Tonight, we escape into the shadows for another edition of Steamy Stories After Dark, marked by midnight. If you find yourself captivated by my stories, share the secret with a friend. Please subscribe to join our community, and if you'd like, leave a comment to share what time it is and what part of the world you are in as you listen. It is nice to see the reach this series is getting. Settle in. The journey starts now.
Marked by Midnight. Episode 3. The Midnight Ball. I didn't have a mirror. Not the kind that told the truth, anyway. The dorm bathroom mirror was clouded at the edges, dotted with old toothpaste freckles. It always made my eyes look tired, like the world had been drinking from me all semester and left me dry. But tonight, Kade Valen had sent a dress, and with it, a mirror. A full-length gilded thing that didn't belong on campus. It didn't belong in my room. It was leaning against my wall like it had always been there, like my life had always been arranged for this moment. The box sat on my bed, black and severe. No logo, no card. Just my name, written in ink so crisp it looked like it had been pressed into the paper. Elara. Only that. No miss. No scholarship girl. No charity case. No polite distance. Just my name. I stood there for a long second with my fingers wrapped around the lid, breathing shallow. I was afraid the air would taste like him if I inhaled too deeply. The mark on my wrist was warm. Not burning. Not yet. Just awake. As if it knew what I was about to do. As if it had been waiting. Don't, I whispered to myself. But my hands didn't listen. I lifted the lid. Black silk, midnight satin, a dress that looked like it had been poured out of shadow and stitched together with secrets. The fabric caught the lamplight with a soft, dangerous sheen, like a blade you didn't see until it was too late. I touched it with 2 fingers. It was wrong. Wrong to be in my room. Wrong to be for me. It was ruinously expensive, and it was revealing in a way that didn't feel accidental. A neckline that dipped like a confession. A back cut low enough that it felt like an invitation. And the sleeves, long, fitted, ending at my wrists like the dress knew exactly where my skin needed to be seen, where the mark lived. My throat tightened. Kade had picked this. Kade had imagined me in it. Kade had decided. I swallowed hard and forced myself to look away from the dress. I forced myself to look at the other thing in the box. A small velvet pouch. Inside was a bracelet. Thin, silver, simple. Too simple for him. Except when I turned it over, I saw the inner curve engraved with tiny letters, so delicate I almost missed them. Wear it. 2 words, no signature. But I could hear his voice in my head, like he was standing behind me, close enough that his breath would stir the hair at my ear. Wear it. My pulse stuttered. The mark warmed another degree, like a living thing pressing closer to the surface of my skin. I should have thrown the dress back in the box. I should have locked my door. I should have texted Rowan or Leela or literally anyone who wasn't wrapped up in Valen money and Valen rules. But I didn't. Because I had already learned the truth, I kept trying to pretend wasn't true. It wasn't about whether I went. It was about whether I obeyed. and some sick, traitorous part of me wanted to know what would happen if I did. I undressed slowly, like I was peeling off the version of myself that still believed I could stay invisible at Arkenfall. The dress slid over my skin like cold water at first. Then it warmed instantly, adapting to me, clinging in a way that felt almost possessive. The fabric hugged my waist, my hips, my ribs. The neckline left just enough exposed to make my breath catch when I looked. And when I turned to the mirror, I didn't recognize her. The girl staring back looked like she belonged in someone else's life, someone else's story, someone with a family crest and an inheritance, and a name people whispered with respect. My hair fell in dark waves over one shoulder. My mouth looked softer. My eyes looked brighter, like the dress had painted me into something dangerous. And my wrist. The mark glowed faintly under the sleeve's edge. Not enough to be obvious. Enough to be noticed if someone looked. Enough for him. I slipped on the bracelet. The moment the silver touched my skin, the mark responded. Heat bloomed beneath it, a pulse that traveled up my arm and into my chest like a warning, or a tether. I sucked in a breath and held it, staring at my reflection like she might answer me. "What are you doing?" I whispered. The girl in the mirror didn't speak, but her eyes looked like they knew, like they'd been waiting. The After Dark ball wasn't advertised, not officially, no posters, no student emails, no faculty announcements, but everyone knew. Arkenfall didn't need invitations for its rituals. It ran on rumors and inheritance, and the silent understanding that some things were for the elite, and some things were for the rest of us to pretend we didn't see. I walked across campus with my coat wrapped tight, the dress hidden beneath it like contraband. The night air was sharp, biting at my cheeks. Fog curled low along the paths like the campus was exhaling. I kept my head down. Still, I felt eyes. Even outside, even in the dark, Arkenfall watched. The ball was being held in the old courtyard, the one surrounded by stone arches and ivy-wrapped towers, the one the freshmen called Storybook, and the seniors called Territory. Warm string lights hung overhead, casting gold against the wet cobblestones. Music drifted out in low, elegant waves, something classical remixed with something modern, a heartbeat beneath the violins. Masked servers moved through the crowd with trays of champagne. Everyone looked expensive. Everyone looked like they belonged. And then there was me. I stepped through the archway, and for a moment, it felt like the air changed. Like the courtyard registered my presence and decided what to do with it. The mark warmed. Not a burn, a pulse, like it was searching. I forced my shoulders back and walked in. Conversations continued. Laughter rose and fell. But I felt it. The shift, the tiny tilt of attention, like a room full of predators smelling blood. People turned, people looked, and I realized something with a sick twist in my stomach. Kade hadn't just sent me a dress. He'd sent me into a spotlight. Across the courtyard, near the center, was Kade Valen. He wasn't wearing a mask. Of course he wasn't. He didn't need one. He stood in black, tailored so perfectly it looked like the suit had been built around him. His hair was slightly tousled, like he'd run a hand through it and decided he didn't care what anyone thought. People orbited him. Beautiful people. Rich people. People who smiled too brightly and leaned too close. He didn't smile back. His gaze moved across faces like he was counting debts. And then his eyes found me. For a single, suspended second, the world narrowed. The music dulled. The lights blurred. The mark on my wrist flared like someone had struck a match under my skin. Kade's gaze didn't soften. It didn't welcome. It claimed. My breath caught. And then he looked away, just like that. As if I wasn't standing there in his dress, wearing his bracelet with his name carved into my fate. As if he hadn't seen me at all. Heat crawled up my throat. A ridiculous sting behind my eyes. I told myself I didn't care. I told myself I was relieved. But the mark pulsed again, angry and restless, like it didn't believe my lies. I moved toward the edge of the courtyard, trying to find somewhere I could exist without being swallowed. I didn't make it far. A hand brushed my elbow, not gentle, not respectful. I turned and found a boy. No, a man, leaning too close, his smile sharp with entitlement. I recognized him. Nash Harrowick. Old money. Arkenfall royalty by way of bloodline and cruelty. He had the kind of face that belonged on magazine covers and wanted nothing but to ruin whatever it looked at. His eyes slid over me, over the dress, the exposed skin, the bracelet. His smile widened. Well, he drawled, voice smooth as spilled wine. Look what the scholarship office dragged in. My stomach tightened. I'm not... I started. He cut me off with a little laugh, as if my voice was adorable. Don't worry, he murmured. We all love a charity case. Makes us feel generous. I stepped back. He stepped forward. The crowd around us didn't react. They were close enough to hear, close enough to see, but they didn't intervene. They never did. Because this was Arkenfall, and Nash Harrowick didn't get told no. His gaze flicked to my wrist. What's that? He asked, too curious. I pulled my sleeve down instinctively. His hand shot out, fast, and caught my wrist. The bracelet flashed silver. The mark flared heat. My breath hitched. Let go, I said, and hated how thin my voice sounded. Nash's grip tightened, and his smile turned mean. Oh, he murmured. It's real. I thought it was just a rumor. Valen's little pet. The word hit me like a slap. My vision tunneled. My pulse hammered. And then the air changed. Not a shift this time. A drop. Like the temperature plummeted in one violent second. Nash's fingers went slack. Because Kade Valen had appeared. I didn't even see him cross the courtyard. One moment he was there among the crowd. The next he was beside me, close enough that his presence swallowed the space. His hand was around Nash's wrist. Not squeezing, not yanking, just holding. And somehow, that was worse. Kade's voice was quiet. So, he said, calm as a knife sliding free. You're touching what's mine? Nash laughed, but it came out strained. Valen, he said, attempting casual. Relax, I was just... Kade's gaze didn't move. Just what? he asked softly. Nash swallowed. Kade leaned in slightly, his mouth near Nash's ear. Though I couldn't hear the words, I saw the effect. Nash paled. His smile vanished. His eyes darted. Kade released him. Nash stumbled back as if he'd been pushed, though Kade hadn't moved an inch. And then Kade looked at me, not at my dress, not at the bracelet, at my face. His eyes were dark, unreadable. There was something in them that made my knees feel weak. "Come," he said. Just that. No, please. No explanation. My body moved before my brain caught up. Kade's hand settled at my lower back, barely touching. Not enough for anyone else to call it inappropriate. Enough for me to feel every nerve light up. The mark burned. We moved through the courtyard like water, parting around stone. People stepped aside. People watched. People whispered. Kade didn't look at them. He guided me toward the garden archway at the far end, where ivy climbed the stone and the fog grew thicker. The music faded behind us. The lights dimmed. The world narrowed until there was only the path, the mist, and the steady pressure of his hand on my back. My heart was trying to claw its way out of my chest. I didn't know what I wanted. I only knew what I felt. And what I felt was him. He stopped beneath the old tree, the one students whispered about, the one with roots that looked like veins and branches that reached like fingers into the night sky. The air here was colder, thicker, charged. The mark on my wrist pulsed so hard it felt like it might split my skin. Kade turned to face me. Up close, he was worse. Not in a bad way. In a way that made me forget how to breathe. His jaw was set. His gaze flicked over my face like he was making sure I was real. "You wore it," he said. I swallowed. "You told me to." His mouth curved, barely, not a smile, something darker. "And you obeyed," he murmured. Heat flushed through me. I started, but the words tangled. Because what could I say? That I'd come because I was afraid? That I'd come because I was curious? That I'd come because the mark wanted him the way lungs wanted air? Kade's hand lifted slowly. He didn't touch me. Not yet. He hovered his fingers near my wrist, close enough that the heat from his skin made mine prickle. The mark responded instantly, glow brightening, heat surging. My breath shuddered out. Kade's eyes tracked the reaction with a quiet, satisfied intensity. "Does it hurt?" he asked, voice low. "Yes," I whispered. His gaze lifted to mine. "And yet," he said softly, "you're still here." I hated him for that. I hated him for being right. Kade's thumb brushed the inside of my wrist. Just once. A single, deliberate stroke over the mark. The sensation hit me like lightning, heat and cold, and something that felt like falling. I gasped, fingers curling against my coat. Kade's hand tightened around my wrist. Not painful, just firm. Holding, anchoring. The mark flared bright violet under his touch, pattern shifting like ink in water. My knees softened. "Kade," I breathed, and hated that his name sounded like a plea on my tongue. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to something that felt like it belonged in a dark room, not under an open sky. "Say my name again," he murmured. I should have said no. I should have pushed him away. But the mark pulsed, demanding, and my body betrayed me. "Kade," I whispered again. His breath hitched. For a moment something raw flashed across his face, something almost like hunger. Then he stepped in, close. So close the front of my coat brushed his suit. His free hand lifted, fingers sliding up my neck. Not gripping, just resting there, like he was memorizing the shape of my pulse. "Do you know what you are?" he asked softly. I shook my head, barely able to think. His thumb traced my jawline. "You're a lock," he said, "and you don't even know what door you're on." My breath trembled. What are you talking about?" Kade's gaze flicked toward the courtyard, as if he could still feel eyes on us even through the fog. Then back to me. "The mark," he said quietly, "was never meant to be romantic." The words landed wrong. My stomach tightened. Kade's fingers pressed gently into the skin at my throat, just enough to make me aware of how close he was. "It was a trap," he murmured. My heart lurched. "A trap for who?" I whispered. His eyes darkened. "For me," he said. The fog drifted between us like a veil. The mark pulsed, harder now, almost frantic. Kade's jaw clenched like he was fighting something. "You don't understand what you've been pulled into, Elara," he said, voice rougher. "There are people at Arkenfall who've been waiting years for this. For you." My blood went cold. "For me?" I echoed. "I'm nobody." Kade's mouth twisted like he was about to laugh, but the sound never came. "That's, what they want you to believe," he said. His hand slid down from my throat to my wrist again, thumb brushing the mark. The heat surged, violent this time, a pulse that traveled through my entire body. I bit down on a sound. Kade watched me closely. "They used you?" he said quietly. "They marked you to reach me." My throat tightened. "Why?" I managed. Kade leaned in until his mouth was near my ear, his voice a dark whisper that made my skin pebble. "Because you're the only one who can undo what they did," he said. "The only one who can save me." A pause. A breath. "And," he added softer, "the only one who can destroy me." The words sat between us like a blade. I stared at him, trembling. The courtyard music felt 1,000 miles away. The world felt unreal. Kade's gaze searched my face as if he was looking for something. Fear, maybe. Or defiance. Or the moment I decided what to be. Then slowly, his hand released my wrist. The mark cooled slightly, like it was angry at the distance. Kade stepped back. Just one step. But it felt like the air changed again, like he'd withdrawn something essential. "You should leave," he said. My breath caught. "What?" I whispered. His jaw clenched. "Now," he said, voice low and sharp. "Before they see you with me. Before they decide you're useful in other ways." My heart hammered. Kade turned slightly, gaze scanning the fog as if he was already calculating threats. Then he looked back at me one last time, His eyes were dark, possessed by something I couldn't name. "If you hear my name tonight," he murmured, "run." And then he disappeared into the mist, moving like he belonged to the shadows. I stood beneath the old tree, alone, my wrist burning with a mark that suddenly felt like a countdown. The fog curled around my ankles. The string lights in the distance shimmered like stars. And somewhere behind me, the music swelled again, sweet and elegant, like nothing had changed. But everything had. 'Cause now I knew the truth. Kade Valen wasn't the danger I'd been afraid of. He was the warning, and the real trap was already closing.